Hey guys, and welcome back to Lost Bits, the series where we explore the unused, altered, and unseen content in gaming. And we are popping back into the Playtime Co factory, and in this third and I think last video on this game, until the next chapter, we'll be focusing on a whole bunch of content that goes either unused or is normally never seen or heard in the final release. Also, we'll go over some more stuff that was cut from Chapter 1, as in my Lost Bits video on it, I really only went over the unused maps and some out-of-bounds objects. And if this is your first video here, definitely check out the others I've made on this game for a little bit more context. And with all of that said, slap that like button for a free slithery hug from Mommy Longlegs. It's time to find some lost bits. Alright, so I know the second chapter is much more topical now, but let's first kick things off here with some more unused content from Chapter 1. If you are just interested in the Chapter 2 stuff, there should be some timestamps in the video timeline. Anyways, let's first talk about some unused graphics, models, and animations. For the unused animations, first we got Huggy Jump Scare Anim, which, obviously based on the name and how it appears, is an unused animation of Huggy Wuggy jump scaring the player. Now this animation does appear to be really similar to the one that is used, but I guess they're different enough to warrant a separate slot. Then the other unused animation is, again for Huggy Wuggy, simply just listed as Huggy Anim, and this one just has Huggy doing whatever he's doing here. I can only assume this was like a very early test for animating the fuzzy blue fella. Then for unused models, first we got this early untextured and hairless version of Huggy Wuggy. It also has seemingly finished animations for walking as well as running, something that the final version of Huggy is never seen doing. In any case though, it seems like this version of Huggy did have a decent amount of work put into him. Then next is this small building thing that's just listed as Temp Factory Building, which although the name suggests it would be a placeholder version for the factory, this model is honestly way too small for that. Then next is this model of a tree that goes unseen since you never actually get to see the outside of the Playtime Co facility. Then next, although we weren't introduced to an in-game model of Kissy Missy until Chapter 2, Chapter 1 actually did contain models for her as well. They were only seen in segments though, and a full model of her wasn't yet put together in Chapter 1, but this is a mock-up of what the model would look like with all the parts in place. Then next, moving on to some unused graphics for Chapter 1, first are a few placeholder images that were left in the game. The first of these is a placeholder for the main menu background graphic. Here we can clearly see a much more basic looking placeholder logo for the game, and everything else just looks unfinished too. The factory has various parts that appear to be still untextured, the clouds look much different in the final version, and many of the smokestacks are lacking in this placeholder too. Then there's also another image of what looks to be a placeholder for the Chapter 1 selection screen. Not only does this version use a different text font, but the actual model of Huggy here appears to be different as well. Then, also related to this title screen is this placeholder image of Poppy, so I guess maybe she was also considered to be featured on the title screen. Then next we got not one, but two early versions of the key icon that's seen after picking up this key from Huggy. One is pretty similar to the one that is used in the final, and the other one is clearly a more basic placeholder. Next, there's this graphic with some text telling the player to gain access to the toy factory, maybe intended for some sort of objective screen. And then next we got, I think, one of the creepiest unused graphics we've come across on Lost Bits in a while. This graphic is known simply as Huggy Image, and it features a dark, incredibly unsettling rendition of Huggy in which he appears to have some messed up eyes, and his grin is absolutely nightmare-inducing. It's currently unclear what this was intended for, an early design of Huggy, an alternate form we'll see in a later chapter, who knows, only time will tell, I suppose. Then last up for the Chapter 1 unused graphics, there are what look to be wall art textures for both Kissy Missy as well as Candy Cat. The Candy Cat design is seen on some boxes in this chapter, but this unique isolated graphic isn't seen otherwise. And yeah, although Kissy Missy here is also seen in different styles, this graphic isn't ever seen either. And now lastly for Chapter 1, there are also a few unused audio things that I didn't cover in my previous video. The first of these are unused voice lines found in a folder titled Simon Game, suggesting that they were for a Simon Says minigame intended for Chapter 1. There are a whole bunch of audio clips in this folder, all featuring a robotic text-to-speech voice, similar sounding to the staff bots in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. These include the voice telling the player how to play, which colors to press, and more. Also, there is a message that indicates that this was originally planned as being the way to restore power to the facility. Anyways, let's give these a quick listen.
This message is being broadcasted using the factory's backup power system. To reactivate this facility's main power, you must play a game of Simon Says, because at Playtime Co., everything is fun. To play, memorize the color sequences on the screen, and enter the exact sequence on the buttons below. Begin. Red, green, blue, yellow, orange, violet. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, Level 4, Level 5. Wow, you are doing so well. Next is Level 99. Next is Level 599. Great job. Oh no. The color sequence you chose was incorrect. Try again. No. Choose the correct colors. Try again. No. Congratulations. You won this game of Simon Says. See you again soon.
Now, if you've played Chapter 2 of this game, you know that this Simon Says type idea was re-implemented with the musical memory minigame there. So either they just started working on that while Chapter 1 was being developed, or maybe it was once intended to be seen there instead. And to support the idea that it was originally planned for Chapter 1, there's actually various leftover assets, including a level difficulty, a start lever, as well as a leftover file for a Simon Says room key. It doesn't have a model or anything left over, but this certainly suggests that at least some work was done on implementing a room like this in Chapter 1. Furthermore, there's also some unused audio tracks that were going to be used with this planned Simon Says minigame too, including a catchy background track as well as one where it glitches out at the end. Here's a quick sample of those. Honestly, with all of these changes and seeing how important this Simon Says minigame seems to have been for Chapter 1, it seems like the chapter overall must have been reworked quite a bit. Then, as a small aside here, there are actually 2 more keys like the Simon Says one left over. One for the gift shop room that's seen to the right of the entrance as you walk in, and then one for a store. Now, no stores are ever seen in Chapter 1, but to add to this, there's also this basic unused model of a currency coin that's believed to have been meant for that store. Unfortunately, it's currently unknown what this store would have offered or what its purpose was intended to be. Anyways, back to the audio stuff. Next up, Chapter 1 also contains audio files for 3 tracks from different video games. The first of these is the track Self-Esteem Fund from Portal 1, then there's the song Your Precious Moon, also from Portal, and then the last track is the song Out of Control from Resident Evil Village. Now, I would love to play these tracks for you here, but I'm not sure if they'll get flagged for copyright infringement, so to be safe, unfortunately, you'll have to search them up if you want to give them a listen. Additionally, the Resident Evil track isn't entirely unused, as it can actually be heard in the Huggy reveal test map that I covered in my first video. Surely an interesting choice to grab a track from Resident Evil, but it certainly fits. Well, kinda. And now, lastly for this chapter, there are also several unused voice clips for a few of the VHS tapes that you find around the facility. Now, these appear to be placeholder versions of the voiceovers that were used before the developers hired on some voice actors, as you can tell the acting just isn't the same. In the interest of time, I won't play through all 4 of these placeholder bits of VHS audio, but to illustrate the differences, here's an example comparison of one of the tapes. If you'd like to listen to all of them, head on over to the cutting room floor page, which as always is linked down in the description.
Hi, my name is Leif Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at Playtime Co. Toy Factory. If you're seeing this, then you're trespassing. Yeah, we play this little tape on loop whenever we close the factory for the day. So, trespasser, just to make you aware, while we pride ourselves primarily on our high-quality toys and excellent childcare, we also pride ourselves on our security.
Hi, My name is Leith Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at the Playtime Co. Toy Factory. If you're seeing this, then you're trespassing. Yeah, we play this little tape on loop whenever we close the factory for the day. So, trespasser, just to make you aware, while we pride ourselves primarily on our high-quality toys and excellent childcare, we also pride ourselves on our security.
And now, let's finally switch gears and move on to the more recent Chapter 2. First and foremost, I wanted to bring up that it appears that this unused office-looking map that was found in Chapter 1 was reworked and pared down into the berry cart puzzle area where you first meet Kissy Missy. Although obviously there aren't any office rooms down here in Chapter 2, the whole system of closed-off gates looks really similar. As soon as I reached this area in Chapter 2 on my first playthrough, my mind immediately went to making this connection. Similarly, although it's still very basic looking in Chapter 1, you could also make the argument that this test area for Poppy's room might have also served as the basis for Elliot's office that's seen in Chapter 2. Now next, let's move on to Chapter 2's unused graphics and models. For the models, first there are leftover unused models of this car as well as this fella who I assume was going to be the driver. Let's call him Jimbo. Jimbo looks ready for action. Anyways, both of these models are from the 1980s vehicle pack from the Epic Games Marketplace, I guess reinforcing what time period this game takes place in case the VHS tapes weren't enough. And in addition to these models, there are also various unused sound effects related to cars, such as car windows opening and closing, car crash sounds, and more. It's unclear what exactly the intention or purpose of these cars was going to be in this game, but I've heard some speculation that maybe initially the protagonist would drive up to the facility and start outside in Chapter 1, and this would also explain why some stuff like the Playtime Co sign was modeled outside. Anyways, no taxi cars or Jimbos are seen yet in this game, so this will remain a mystery, I guess, at least for now. Next, I went over this stuff in my video dedicated to the unused multiplayer mode, but for some quick overlap here, other models that don't go used are the various colors of the default grab pack guy, the Win Cube, as well as this blue hand scanner listed as MP hand panel. It appears to be the same as the blue hand scanners that are seen in the chapter, but despite that, it is actually a unique, separate model. Oh, and there's also this whole monster selection box with Huggy and Mommy meant for the multiplayer mode too. Then back to more unused graphics. Next are a pair of images of the red and green power cube circuit things that are seen as part of that one puzzle in Chapter 1. Then also from Chapter 1 is this early placeholder key icon. Welcome back, I guess? Then next, there's also this static image of a fire. These last two graphics were very likely placeholders for the Poppy key as well as the fire scene in the furnace, respectively. Next, we also got some unused textures of a few of the Playtime Co characters. First, there's this texture meant for a cutout of Mommy Longlegs. There's only one cardboard cutout featuring Mommy seen in the game, and it's this one on the cart with Boogiebot that's seen in the game station area. But with this texture, I guess there were once plans to have a standalone Mommy Longlegs cutout too. Then next is this texture of Bunzo Bunny, also meant for a cardboard cutout. In fact, this is the texture that was used for the cardboard cutout in the game's prototype build that we went over in my previous video. But ultimately, this was replaced with the one seen in the final with the red button, leaving the earlier version unused. And finally, there's also this unused texture showing off the original design of PJ Pugapillar back when he was all pillar and no pug. This does, however, still seem different than his appearance in the teaser trailer, so I guess this might have been some sort of intermediate step between the original and final design we got. I don't think the design is quite as good as the one we ended up getting, but I still like this one nonetheless. Then lastly for the graphics, there are also various test tile textures. We got a few squares, even more squares, as well as a whole bunch of other ones, including these indicating their size and I assume pixels, as well as a reference for 15 real-world meters, similar to the red panel we saw out of bounds in my last video. Now moving on, there are also some video files that go unused in Chapter 2. The first of these videos, despite being labeled as a new version, is what looks to be an early version of the tutorial video for the Grab Pack's Green Hand. It's actually quite different too, and shows a scrapped feature of the green hand, where there was once planned to be an actual timer that would be visible on it, and it would count down for the 10-second limit of holding power. Then, the warning to use caution with it is different too, as the death of the default yellow fella is much more gruesome. Honestly, I think this death animation is much better than the one that was used in the final version. Additionally, this demo version also uses the awesome song A Burning Memory by The Caretaker. And this is actually one of at least a few areas that this game uses songs from The Caretaker as a placeholder. Another instance was also seen in the background music for the prototype version's Statues minigame. Then, while we're discussing more copyrighted stuff, the other unused video is an early version of the Mommy Longlegs commercial, where here, Itsy Bitsy Spider by Little Richard is used as a placeholder background song. I'm assuming the developers didn't want to pay for a license to use any of these songs, so it's no surprise that they were ultimately all replaced. They're also really good songs too, especially the ones by The Caretaker. I'd love to give you guys a snippet here, but I'm sure I'd get a nice fat copyright claim, so yeah, if you want to give them a listen, be sure to search them up sometime. Now, if you haven't seen my recent video documenting Chapter 2's prototype build, there I mentioned how Poppy's ending dialogue was changed. Well, it appears that there was actually more lines from her that were also scrapped, namely her first interaction with the player in Chapter 2. Uploaded by PluffyFX is a scrapped animation they made for Poppy's introduction in Chapter 2, but it was ultimately scrapped.
Don't be frightened. I'm going to help you. You set me free. In return, I will help set you free. You cannot escape the way you came. Your only escape is to take the train. It's just up ahead. The train requires a special code. I'm the only one left who knows it. Though you must be cautious. Mommy lurks in the darkness below. Mommy doesn't like guests.
So it seems like here the player would be given some more exposition and the whole objective of Chapter 2 would be explained. I guess this much exposition might have been too much to reveal too soon, but also, this version of Poppy appears to be the more gentle-hearted version that we heard in the scrapped version of the ending. Now, according to PluffyFX, this animation was scrapped since the character was changed during development. And I guess this only goes to support that Poppy was changed to be a bit more mysterious, suspicious, and ultimately, as we see at the end of the chapter, conniving. Then, another animator that worked on the game, Zamination Z, also posted some of his work including animations for Mommy and Poppy. And in this video, he also showed off an unused idle animation for Daisy the Flower. If you haven't seen my previous video, in short, before being changed to Bunzo Bunny, originally, as seen in the Chapter 2 teaser trailer, the animatronic that was planned to be lowered in the musical memory game was Daisy instead. Although this idle animation itself isn't all too exciting, I think it's cool to see this unused remnant from the earlier version of musical memory. Another cool thing revealed in this tweet is that most of the shots of Mommy in the commercial for her toy seen in the game, despite it looking like it was stop-motion animation of a real toy, is actually computer-generated. Since they weren't able to make toys with stretchable arms, all of the shots of Mommy being stretched were computer-made. But for some of the shots where she's just static, these 3D printed dolls of her were actually used instead. Anyways, back to Poppy here, there are a few more voice lines that never get used in Chapter 2. The first of these is her pointing out a fancy door and saying she'll deal with it.
Ooh, this is a fancy door. Okay, I'll go deal with this. You just stay here.
I can only assume this was intended for Elliot's door here, as I can't really think of any other fancy doors in this chapter. Then listed sequentially right after this one is just Poppy announcing her return.
I'm back. Miss me?
Based on it being right after the last one, I assume this would have been used for Poppy popping out of one of the vents somewhere after taking care of the fancy door. Then last is not a fully unused clip, it's just that most of it ends up being unheard since it gets cut off. And this is the voice clip that's used when Poppy gets grabbed by Mommy in this room. Here's what Poppy was going to say had she not been grabbed away by Mommy Longlegs.
Listen, I'm going to need you to trust me, okay? Enter this next room. and I will meet you at the bottom.
Now, based on Poppy mentioning that you should enter the next room and that she'll meet you on the bottom, it seems like originally Poppy would talk to you in this room before the one with the big hole, and I guess the whole bit with Mommy grabbing her was added in after the fact. Furthermore, this once again supports my old theory from my previous video where Poppy was going to have a bigger role in this room and would use this vent here to, I guess, crawl down to the next area. So this change also explains why the developers ended up closing off this vent in the final version. Then next up, in another tweet made by someone that worked on Chapter 2, Mad and Mangled tweeted the original storyboard plan for how Mommy Longlegs was going to get bamboozled at the end of the chapter. It appears that instead of her body getting ground up, she was initially planned to, lose her head instead. I guess this might have been deemed a bit too gory for the game, but honestly, this would have been pretty crazy to see. And on this note, I should also bring up that I've seen some fake storyboard videos being circulated around the internet too, and I've had people leave comments believing that they are actually real. These are in fact not official and are just fan-made, so if you or anyone you know thinks these are real, there is confirmation that they are fan-made fakes. The only one that is real is this Mommy one that we just went over earlier. In any case, I really love how some of the people that worked on this game have been tweeting their work. It really gives us cool insight into the game's development. And now, last up for this video, although Chapter 1 of this game saw a decent amount of unused leftover levels in the files, unfortunately there's only one unused map that's notable in Chapter 2 here. This map is simply known as Shader Debugs, and if the file name didn't already make it clear, this map was used for debugging the shaders for this game. Not very impressive when unlit, but there we go, much better. Anyways, so here we have a small area with an untextured sphere, a T-shaped tunnel segment with some one-way textures that can only be seen from the inside, as well as this Unreal Engine asset here. There's also some developer text found here under the tunnel. The first one mentions that you could see some volumetric light shafts if you disabled the Sky Dome mesh, and then the second one tells us that by pressing Control, the L key, and then moving the mouse, you could also move the sun around, I guess to see how lighting would affect the different objects from different angles. Unfortunately though, I couldn't find a way to get either of these to actually work in this map. Anyways, this appears to be an area that was used to test lighting on different textures inside of a tunnel, likely for the end sequence with the Mommy chase, as well as lighting on this, which I could be wrong, but I believe was a test for ray tracing. Not the most interesting test map we've come across on this series, but it's honestly still really cool in my opinion. Hopefully, we get to see more stuff like this left over in the game in the next chapter. And on that note, we'll put Poppy Playtime to rest on this channel, at least until the next update. Till then, be sure to check out some more of my other Lost Bits videos by clicking or tapping on the card here, and yeah, make sure to subscribe to find your way back for future videos. Oh, and also just want to give a quick shout out to Mala, Gallant Arc, and Just Natan, who are all a massive help with making these videos possible. I honestly had a ton of fun dissecting this game with them over the past few weeks. Anyways, as always, thank you all so much for tuning in today, and I will see you in a bit.